There's all these no-code tools that only exist because how else would you let non-technical people like write code other than some drag and drop thing? That's gone now. The entire category is gone because AI can write good code from text, right? Like there's all these. It's like became very clear. Holy crap! The entire software world order is getting rewritten. Bolt was really the first product that came out and really cracked it and really proved it. Now there's a lot of other companies that are kind of coming in and doing this in various ways. This is the moment that we've been working for 7 years.
Welcome to The Peel. I'm your host, Turner Novak, founder of Banana Capital. Today's guest is Eric Simons, co-founder and CEO of StackBlitz, best known for its breakout product Bolt, letting anyone build full-stack apps from text in your browser.
For a lot of people that tried Bolt, it was kind of like that for the first time since ChatGPT. It's mind-blowing. Just put in an idea and it's ready in 20 to 60 seconds.
Bolt launched in October of 2024, quickly growing from 0 to 20 million in annualized revenue in 2 months, making it one of the fastest growing products of all time.
We blew out Anthropic's GPU capacity. Dario emailed me, he's like, this is like the fastest thing we've ever seen grow on this platform.
But Eric will tell you it wasn't an overnight success, and the product didn't even work the first time they tried building it.
We were talking about spinning down the company, at the end of last year.
We go behind the scenes of the 7-year journey building the tech that eventually led to Bolt, how to avoid distractions, being capital efficient, and living on $1 per day squatting inside AOL's headquarters when he was 19.
I actually really love being there. I was coding 12 hours a day.
Eric takes us inside Bolt's viral launch, how software is changing, and figuring out a new business model on the fly.
When we launched Bolt, so much stuff was going wrong.
And his strategy for fundraising and PR, why you should open source your code, and Bolt's playbook for building a community around the product that enabled their viral launch.
Build community along the way, no matter what, because it is useful to have a distribution mechanism. When you have something that's really going to work, the message will get out.
A quick thank you to Sam Denti at Bolt, Joe Floyd at Emergence, and Alex and Gaurav at Mantis for their help brainstorming topics for Eric. A reminder, I publish new episodes of The Peel every week, exploring the world's greatest startup stories, just like this one. Tune in next week for my conversation with Cam Duty at Brickyard, the venture capital firm, convincing founders to move to Chattanooga, Tennessee, to lock in with no distractions until they find product market fit. Now, let's talk to Eric. Eric, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
I'm really excited to have you. I feel like there's kind of like this lore around you and Bolt. You went from 0 to 20 million in revenue in 2 months after launch. I think that's probably the most insane trajectory of like any startup ever. So it's exciting to have you here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been a busy couple of months. that's for sure.
Really quick, for someone who is not familiar with you or with Bolt or with StackBlitz, just what is it? Really quick.
Yeah. I think Bolt is like the thing, is our main thing at this point. And so bolt.new is the domain. You go to bolt.new, and it's very simply, it's just a text to app sort of tool. So think of it kind of like you go to ChatGPT. Imagine if you could say, build me a full stack web application. Not just like a static landing page. You can certainly do that with Bolt, but you can say, hey, make me a CRM. It'll actually be able to build a full stack app inside your browser with this chat agentic sort of experience, all the way where you can just click deploy and it's live on the internet. And so I actually need to make an asterisk because today we actually just rolled out the ability to do this for native iOS and Android apps. So you can go to Bolt and say, hey, I want to make a dog walking application on iOS, and hit enter, and it'll actually spin up this like React Native based tooling, and you can preview it on your phone and deploy it to the App Store.
So is this like it takes a day? Is it 5 seconds? Like how quickly do you get it?
Yeah, that's the magic of the thing, is like you're talking like less than 60 seconds from like when you hit enter, whatever your idea is, you get a response and it's building it and it's rendering entirely inside the browser. And that's like a lot of this for us, like we're it's like the fastest experience that's kind of ever existed for this, because we've actually been working before Bolt. We were building in-browser dev environments that are like built with WebAssembly. And we designed this, the operating system we made from scratch in WebAssembly to boot in like 100 milliseconds. So like when you go to Bolt and you say, hey, I want a full stack web app that's like a CRM, we boot an operating system in your browser tab in like 100 or 200 milliseconds, like instantly.
So what does that mean if I'm not super technical, not an engineer, which by the way, that's me. I'm kind of like, I maybe think I get it, but I'm also like, I don't know if I. So what does that mean? You're creating an operating system in the browser.
Yeah. And by the way, for like everything I'm saying here, doesn't matter if you understand it, because that's the beauty of this thing, right? Is that you can come, like I think like 60-70% of the people coming to Bolt are not developers. They're PMs, they're entrepreneurs, they're VCs. They're like, my mom used this thing to build her first website at 73, right? And that's like the power of this is it's the simplest interface in the world. It's a text box. You just tell it what you want it to build. And but when you kind of break under the hood, okay, well, if you want an AI to actually build a full stack web app or a mobile app, how do you do that? And if you look at how do developers do that, they have to set up developer environments on their computer, which dev environments are basically just tools you install onto an operating system and run. And the problem, if you want to have an in-browser experience for this stuff, is you need an operating system to run it on. And browsers don't give you access to your local operating system.
So it's kind of like you would have to download a program that just runs on your computer, and that's what you use. But you can actually like create that in the browser, or recreate that experience in the browser.
Bingo. And so you can, the example, like the closest like kind of technical analogy to this is like Figma. So back in 2012, my co-founder and I actually had the kind of the good fortune of bumping into Dylan Field and Evan Wallace when they were starting Figma, and we kind of got to see that story play out for them. And when their first pitch for Figma, when they went and raised their seed or their A or whatever it was, they didn't even have a design tool. They just had this 3D demo of a ball dropping into water in a browser tab. And the pitch was like, browsers have gotten powerful enough with WebGL and what was the predecessor to WebAssembly to actually do complex graphics rendering entirely on device within the browser sandbox. Because that's possible, we think we can build a design tool on this. We're going to have to write an entire rendering engine from scratch that's built around WebGL because that none exists. You can't take what just works on local, like what Photoshop or whatever uses. You can't just port that to the web. It would take forever. It'd be slow, whatever. You got to write it from scratch. It'll take years to do, but if we do it, we can make this design tool. And obviously, we've seen how that story's kind of played out. That was the key insight we had, my co-founder and I, back 2016, 2017. There were a whole bunch of APIs that landed in browsers. We were like, holy heck, like it actually seems like theoretically possible for the first time where you could actually write an operating system from scratch that could run entirely inside of a browser. And if you could do that, what that means is that you can actually run full development environments for building web applications and et cetera. And that would enable the same sort of ubiquitous access that Figma has allowed for design for actually building software. And so that's like kind of, we call that technology web container. And that's really like the kind of the crown jewel of how our stuff works.
You sort of quote unquote invented that sort of, like, what is this, 9 years ago at this point, 8 years ago almost?
It took us 4 or 5 years to really pave that technology out. And so it was kind of a classic deep technology play, right? Where like a lot of the risk was front loaded to like, can it be done? Because there's no prior art. When you go and talk to like subject matter experts that know stuff about browser engines, and they're like, this isn't going to be possible, right?
Did you get a lot of that back like 8 years ago?
Absolutely. I mean, like that's, it was back when we raised our seed. I mean, Sarah Guo was the one who ended up leading it, but I mean, it was really tough to get people to kind of like believe, because they would hand this to the SME at the firm or whatever. And I imagine those guys look at it and go, like we don't think this is possible, and if it is possible, like how big of a deal could this actually? So it's just, and this is classic startups, right? It's like at the earliest stages, it's about finding kind of those one or two people that are like, okay, I'm gonna take a flyer on these guys and believe here, and it took us years to do, and fortunately we got it to work, and it just works incredibly well. But yeah, this is the same. And if you kind of look at all the productivity apps on the web that have ever, grown to be used by hundreds of millions or billions of people, it's always the same technological compute approach, where like Google Docs, like, so if you look at cloud IDEs.
What's an IDE for somebody who doesn't know?
Interactive development environment. So it's like the thing that developers are like writing code in, right? And back in 2009, I think Cloud9 was like the first cloud-based IDEs. Like in your browser, you could go to a IDE that kind of just loads up. And the thing is, like, your computer's not in that model, your computer's not actually doing any work, because every like cloud IDE you're going to is spinning up a VM in the cloud that your browser is connecting to. And so the problem with that approach is like there's a ton of latency. So every keystroke has to be sent to the server. You have to get a response from the server. Someone's got to pay for this VM, this EC2 box that you're connecting to.
For each developer.
For each developer that wants to do this. And so if you want to think about something like Google Docs, it has like 1 billion users, right? I mean, can you imagine if they had to spin up a VM for each user every time you opened a Google Doc, right? Like there's not even 1 billion VMs on the planet, but there are 1 billion end user devices that are connected to these things. And so if you can leverage the end user compute, there's zero cost to the provider, Google or Figma or us, right? There's no servers we have to spin up.
Oh yeah, so you're not paying for AWS to like run and store them. It's literally just on their device in the browser.
Bingo, because it's using your CPU, your memory, so there's no latency. It's a way better experience, right? And you can have an incredibly permissive free tier because you don't have to worry about people going and using your free tier to mine Bitcoin on your EC2 boxes and stuff.
Oh, does that actually happens often?
All the time, they're mining Bitcoin. They're hosting phishing sites. They're using it to DDoS, other sites or whatever, using your infra on your IP. So then you get banned from AWS. It's a whole whack-a-mole game. So all these things that have been in the space now and previously, other than us, have had this huge issue, but they eventually just have to nerf the hell out of the free tier because they, it's this never-ending cat and mouse game. But the problem is, if you nerf the free tier, you're limiting how fast the fastest way to grow is word of mouth. You want to travel at the speed of talk, and that's me sending you a link to a Google Doc or a Figma, and then now Bolt, and it opens up. You don't have to log in. There's no credit card. There's none of this stuff that you have to do, and it just works, right? And so that's the magic of the experience, which is really the key insight that the company was founded on.
Interesting. Well, I guess speaking of the magic, so you officially like Bolt. I think you tweeted it. It was sometime in October. You were like, hey, this is a thing. I think you probably started working on a couple months before that. Just take us inside the last couple months. Like, what's been going on in your world?
Yeah, totally. So we had the idea for Bolt like a year ago, actually, and we built a prototype back in February of 24.
And what happened with it?
The frontier models at the time weren't good enough to actually make it usable.
So what does that mean? Like they could not, like the output that I was getting on the visual interface and it's just like kind of sloppy, didn't work properly, or
if the code was even correct enough to even execute, because you just run, you put in a prompt, you get an error, it's like it, and you click fix it, but you just keep getting errors. And so
probably say like, fuck this, like I'm not, like this is a waste of time, like it doesn't work.
Waste time. Imagine charging people money for that, right? It's like who the hell is going to put in their credit card? Like the value prop wasn't there, right? It was too sloppy, it was too inaccurate. And the designs that I outputted were just not good. And then in May, so we put that project on the shelf. We spent like 2 weeks kind of building a prototype, and we're like, okay, this cool idea, but this stuff isn't there yet. Back in May, we got a kind of an early preview of the Sonnet 3.5 stuff. And we were like, okay, this changes this. We think this might change everything, right?
What was the difference with Sonnet that you noticed from prior versions?
I mean, from the first time we tried the API, it spat out code that not only worked for zero shot, but was beautiful. And I was like, oh my God, this is insane, that this is so good. And so we spent June kind of testing out the API, and we were like, we have to do this. And then so July 1st, we greenlighted Bolt, and then we launched in October 1st. So that's three something months we spent building the thing. So it was 90 days, I think, we spent building Bolt. And we had no idea what, and it's the other thing too is a lot of developer tool startups, us included, especially the cloud IDE sector. I mean, it's not been easy days in this. I mean, so we were talking about spinning down the company, at the end of last year.
Really?
Yeah. The Bolt was kind of the last. We tried a whole bunch of different ideas, and we gotta. It's really cool technology we made here, but we have to
make money, I guess, commercialize it in some way. We need a product. Yeah,
exactly. Deep technology plays require commercialization, right, for them to make sense. And we're 7 years in on this thing, and we developers loved our tool, but it's getting them to pay money for it, getting them out of their local environment, just was really tough. And so we were like, if we can't figure out how to make this work, we're gonna have to start figuring out how to spin things down, whether that's acquired or, whatever. Right.
Which you probably had. There's probably some fundamental value of like, we've created this stuff. Like someone would have wanted you probably, right? Like the team or
I would hope, right? But and here's the thing is like Webdeer is really cool, but it's like there was no clear breakthrough application that made commercial that was obvious because that's why we were going to try and get acquired or whatever, right? It's like we can't figure out how to make money, so it's like some other
somebody
company,
else
yeah,
figure it
they're,
out.
they're like, oh well, we'll totally buy you and this because we think it's like if we can't do it, that was like this challenge. We were like, shit, like we cannot figure out like.
I did not realize this.
Yeah, it's like it's I think it kind of got out in the press a little bit with like the fundraising announcement recently, but which I have no shame talking about it because it's like this is startups, this is it, right? This is like you're kind of backs against the wall. You gotta try stuff and hustle.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of this stuff is like revisionist history where like, somebody like is some genius product person that like, crafts a perfect thing and like the company works over. Like Airbnb was like classically like making cereal to just like get money to like keep operating. And Instacart, I think Purva tried like 40 things or I forget the number, but like their stories, like he literally just tried tons of different ideas and you finally get something to work. That's like less exciting to talk about, way less glamorous.
Totally, and to me, I'm actually the most like I love talking about that because like to me, like last year was this it was a year of great challenges, and I think that just on multiple fronts, like like last year I had my firstborn, my daughter in April. We had, we had to figure out what we were going to do with the company and try and turn things around or whatever. And so like both of those are like I think you had said that you have kids too, right? And anyone else listening to this that have kids know exactly what I'm going to say here, which is like first months of life, first year of life is like, I think magic goes beyond that.
It kind of gets easier, but in a different way, I guess.
Yeah, especially the first months, I think, and then going into it, I was, I talked to enough of my friends that, had kids where I was like, this is, like, basically, like, kind of prepare for war, right? Like, you need to, you have to go into it really understanding that it's going to, to be a great parent during those times takes a lot of time and you're not on a lot of sleep. There's a lot, it can be very stressful. And so one morning, maybe within a week or two of my daughter being born, I just woke up. It was like in April, and I was just like, "I'm going to do an Ironman this year." And like, I've never ran a marathon or anything in my life, and then the one I signed up for was in October, so it was like 6 months or something after.
Okay. So piecing together the timeline here.
Yeah. And for me, it's kind of like I guess I've always found like when I'm kind of dealing with great challenges in my life, it's having equally great physical challenges helps balance me out. And so last year was nuts because I was like these three kind of huge things. I had no idea what goes into training for an Ironman, and I found out most people spend kind of years training for these things. And so that the Ironman actually happened 3 weeks after we had launched Bolt when everything was just going up and to the right. And so I was like, God, the timing here is the timing here is
You
insane.
probably added like $1 million in revenue while you were doing the race.
Yeah. Like I think probably around that, honestly, like for a day back then, like those days was crazy. But anyway, so like last year was this kind of wild gauntlet. And so with Bolt, we put it online. Our expectation going into the thing was like, man, it would be cool because at that point the company was like at less than $1 million of ARR after like 7 years of work. We're like, man, this would be great if we could get like after a couple of months, if we were like at another couple 100K to the ARR, like that would be.
Because I mean, that would have been after just years of slogging through. That would have probably been huge for morale of just like, hey, it looks like we finally have something that is kind of working.
Totally, absolutely, yeah. I mean, and that was like kind of I tried to kind of temper the team's enthusiasm and their expectations around like, hey, what should we expect here? And one of this guy Pete in our team, our DevOps guy, the second day after we launched, I think I can't remember what the ARR ad was, but it was like, hey, we added like 60K of ARR or something, and he was like, man, this is crazy, like it's just gonna like, wow, this is gonna be huge or whatever. And I was like, listen, on launch day, people are excited. They're going to put in their credit card. Da, da, da.
Yeah, half the people are going to churn. It's all just VCs trying the new products.
I've seen this movie before. The past 15 years of entrepreneurship, I know this movie. I know how this is going to, you know what I mean? Like, which is, I think, the rational, the rational perspective. Just, if you look at the sheer hits on bat, entrepreneurs take, that's typically like the tech crunch of initiation and then, whatever.
So what did you do? Like, how did you like go into this launch? It was like, so it wasn't even like a big thing. It was like, oh, we built this. Like, let's just, I think you tweeted about it, right? And just kind of shipped the tweet and.
Yeah, we put out a tweet thread. Like, that was it. Like, there's no blog post, there's no press article. It was nothing. It was just a tweet thread. And I think we put a good amount of effort into, our tweet threads like Tomek on our side makes these awesome videos that like really do a great job, like with the screencast showing how it works and stuff. And, but I mean, yeah, it was a tweet and it ended up just going viral. And I can't remember. I think it's I don't know, maybe over 1 million views or it's something like that. Your millions, I don't know. But
did it escape onto other platforms? Like, did it hit Hacker News? Did it hit Reddit or any like YouTubers, influencers talking about it? Or
yeah, Hacker News, Reddit. I can't remember if I'm sure someone might have posted it on either of those. It wasn't from us, at least, if it did end up there.
So that's true virality when it's other channels. Like, I think that's how I've heard people describe it before, is like if it starts to escape like more than one channel and you have other people starting to talk about it, I think that's technically the definition of viral.
I think so. I mean, and I've done it. I've done so many launches of things over the years where like this was the first one where it just continued to grow outside of what we were putting pressure on, right? In a meaningful way, right? And so we had like lots of YouTubers and people on TikTok that were picking the thing up.
Do you know why it resonated so much with people? Like, and why were people using it, like, and getting value out of it, and why were so many people talking about it? Like, could you pinpoint that?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think it's I think up until that like ChatGPT moment where you like tried ChatGPT, like it was like, holy heck, like this is crazy, right?
This is really, really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people that tried Bolt, it was kind of like that for the first time since ChatGPT, and that's what a lot of people have said. It was like kind of the first time they had the ChatGPT moment since ChatGPT, because it's really it's mind blowing when you just put in an idea for like a web app and you just see the thing work, build it, and it's ready in like anywhere from like 20 to 60 seconds, right? And then you just keep prompting it, like, oh, I don't like the background color, make it this. Oh, here's an image to use.
That's literally what I was doing yesterday. So I was trying it out, and it was just like, make me a website for the podcast. Like, I couldn't think of what to do. It was like midnight, so I was like, I really want to try this out before we talk, like, and try to go through it all. And yeah, it was like, change the background color, and like, it's in like the first version was like not what I would have picked, but it's like you got something there, and it's like, oh, it's a website. And like, I just literally said, make me a website, and it made a website. It kind of reminds me of if you've used any of those website builders like Squarespace or I don't know, like any of these like kind of simple,
Wix,
yeah, you like you get a template and you like kind of change the template and like, but it's literally like you just talk to it and you're like, here's what I want you to change, and you just like text it, like send someone an email.
Yep, exactly. And that was like, and so when we started seeing this, the traffic just increasing day over day over day for like weeks, we were like, what is going on here? Because and the people coming in are not like we've been a developer tool for 7 years, right? And like we have people coming that clearly are not developers using this, and they're like running into all these problems because we didn't really like initially design this thing in mind with like, hey, this is non-developers are going to beat the crap out of it, right? And so we're trying to fix stuff and whatever. But it was interesting because what you just said, I didn't really quite realize what you just pointed out there though, which is why this is so much better than like Wix or Squarespace, why people are using it, and it was kind of, there's this guy that so yeah, I think a couple of weeks after we launched, I put out a tweet, and there this salesman from Dallas, like not a developer, right? Replied to the tweet. I can't remember what I had said, but he said, thank you and your team so much for making Bolt. Like, my daughter's got a medical condition, and so whenever she travels, she has to get donors wherever she goes ahead of time, kind of lined up. And so I made her a site where she can send that along and kind of find folks to donate when she travels. And it was like a really a very touching use case, right, of Bolt. But at the same time, I was like, should I tell this guy that like Wix and Squarespace exists? Like we're not the first people to allow you to build websites and put them on the internet. And it really bothered me. Like what, like I didn't understand it, and it finally clicked with me because it brought me back to when I used Squarespace. The only time I've ever used one of these things was back in 2021 to make my wedding website. And I had originally, like, I'm a developer, so I was like, honey, I'm gonna make the site myself. I'm gonna go in the backyard, chop down a tree,
Build the table myself.
Yeah, exactly. And so I spend a Saturday, building the thing out, and I'm like, dang, this is actually like, it's like a lot of work to me. And this is like 21. There's no AI assist. It's like I'm writing every line of code, right? And so I was like, okay, next weekend I'll come back and do it. Didn't. And my wife was like, here's a Squarespace account. Go use this thing. And so I did. And that's what I found. The interfaces for these things are complicated as hell. These site builder things. And then you compare that against Bolt, which is it's a text box, right? I mean, you go to bolt.new, it's like, I think it's one of the things people love about it is that there's no marketing landing page. There's no like all this crap. You go to wix.com, it's like, dude, there's like a bajillion things going on there, right? I mean, it's like,
You said it, not me.
It's a text box. You tell it what you want, and then it gives you something back, and then you tell it what you want again. You're like, yeah, not that. Here's the text. Da, da, da. Yeah, I mean, and again, like to the point where my mom, made her own website for the first time at 73 years old, and so I think that we see just this range of use cases of folks building for personal sites, for their small businesses. Like there's a bakery that I know, they used it to build their website instead of getting a web contractor, because they were quoted like $5,000 for like a bakery website, and it's like they bought our $20 plan, have a bakery website.
And it's interesting because like instead of then if you're working with like an engineer or dev shop, whatever, you're probably like typing out the specs and saying like, here's what I want, do this, do this. They make it, you come back and you're like, oh, actually, can we like make this change and like use these images for this thing? So it's basically just taking what you would probably communicate with an engineer and it just does it for you. Like it does the work of the engineer just very quickly.
100%. And that's like, the folks that are building like really like the people have launched startups and made money off their startups off of Bolt at this point. And the people that are doing it, the people that are most successful with this product are people that have actually had to interface with development teams before. They're PMs, they're entrepreneurs, because that's exactly what they're doing. They're talking to the AI as they would one of the developers. They have a PRD, they give it to Bolt, say, here's exactly what I want built. Oh, this thing, this little problem's happening. Let me Google it. Oh, what if we use this API instead? You know what I mean? It's like they're, instead of just writing a Jira ticket, they're hitting enter on it into a text box where it actually is coming back.
Yeah, and then you like significantly instead of waiting like a week for someone to get to the ticket and build it. It's like, to your point, 60 seconds again. And you kind of get updates too. Like it'll say like, we're doing this now. And then like a new line will be like, we're doing this. And they'll be almost like a check will appear next to the certain things. If I'm remembering right, like you kind of like show people, it's like when you're using ChatGPT and it's like, I'm thinking, here's what I'm doing. This is the part of the process I'm in right now of like the model going through and searching or finding or constructing whatever you need. So I think it's interesting the way it's so intuitive. I guess one question though is like, couldn't people sort of use something like ChatGPT or Claude to kind of do this? Like, what's kind of the difference if I'm listening to this, like, like Claude, I've used that to build stuff before. Like, what does Bull do differently?
Yeah, I think like, in Claude, they've got like artifacts, which is like, they kind of let you build like little mini web apps. And I think ChatGPT has a similar thing. I think it's called Canvas, if I'm not mistaken. And like, I think for like small things, those things can totally work fine. If you're trying to build an actual website or web application or mobile app that you want to like deploy and have a domain on, right? Or even just deploy somewhere, right? That's where you need Bolt, because that's, again, like you need to be able to install third-party packages on demand. If you tell it, hey, like have confetti pop out on the screen when the user signs up for my app, that's to install some npm library for the confetti thing and da. And like these other tools can't do that because they're limited. They're not running an operating system that can just do those sorts of things.
So you've kind of just like built the environment and you sort of like made all those kind of integrations with all the other different, to your point, like the different libraries that you might need. Is that kind of why?
More or less, but it really comes down to like, if you want to build like real software versus just like what artifacts or ChatGPT Canvas can spit out, right? um, all real software is built in dev environments. Dev environments are operating systems with tools and package managers and libraries and stuff, right? And so you need to actually be running an operating system that can install those tools, install dependencies on demand, and that's the under the hood really the big difference. And when I think everyone kind of wants to do the sort of stuff we're doing right now, but the two routes you have to go do it are, one, go have cloud VMs that get spun up for every user. And if you look at Anthropic and OpenAI,
Is that what they do?
they're not, because I'm
Oh, because it's probably too expensive or logistically impossible, or
yeah, expensive security. Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, if you look at like what's the number of VMs that one DevOps guy can keep an eye on, it's like maybe a couple thousand at best, right? But it's like, okay, so and how many MAUs does ChatGPT have?
I think it's like 500 million, or but maybe I don't know. Maybe that's like a little too high, but it's one of the biggest products in the world at this point.
So it's like just the how the number of DevOps guys you need just to keep an eye on all, it just doesn't make sense, right? And so I think everyone's, when you look at artifacts and Canvas, they're actually doing it's all completely in browser, but they're just kind of baking a very specific specific component libraries and stuff statically. So if you try and do anything outside of that, it doesn't work, right? And so just not that it's not useful. Like I actually use Claude for like generating graphs and stuff like that. But if you're trying to like build, a website for your podcast, you're trying to build a CRM, et cetera. It's like it's just not going to work.
Yeah. I think another interesting sort of maybe parallel to what you're doing, another company that went from 0 to, I think 100 million is like the public number. I forget the time, but was Cursor. So it's like maybe much, but it seems like it's much more focused on developers and very technical users. Is that a good way to kind of compare the two products?
Totally. And there's a lot of overlap between we have like 30-40% of our audience is developers using this. And so developers will come to us for the agentic, like, hey, I need to go and like, especially like web freelancers and contractors, the arbitrage, like if you search like Bolt arbitrage on Twitter,
Bolt arbitrage.
Yeah, it's like there's people that are actually saying this, because it's like there's a guy, his name's CJ. I've actually gotten to know him a little bit over the past month or two. But he's like a web freelancer, and he posted the most legendary ROI story I've seen today. But he had a customer that needed a web app. He spent $7 on Bolt in inference cost to make it. And he posted this, and someone asked the question I would have had they not, which is, how much did you charge the client though? $9,000.
Wow. That's like the highest margin product outside of committing fraud.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's without the FBI or coming to your door or whatever. But the people that do the like dev shops, I mean, this is changing the game. Because you can come here, say, hey, this is the customer, this is the name of the customer, this is what they want. Here's a screenshot of a Figma or whatever. Enter. And it takes you, like, so think of Bolt as like takes you from 0.0 to 1.0, and then Cursor is really great at taking you from 1.0 to 1.1, 1.2, whatever. And so we see like that's a lot of developers are using Bolt to really like kick things off, go 0 to 60 insanely fast, pull that out of Bolt, go to Cursor, build on it, bring it back into Bolt to add big functionality pieces, flip it back, right? So that's the developer audience for us is still really like more important than ever. What's just really cool is that we also now are seeing PMs taking their company's code base or whatever, right? Pulling it in, instead of writing a Jira ticket, hitting enter into a prompt, it writes the code. They're able to commit changes back, right? So that's kind of the wild thing that's kind of going on with a tool like Bolt. And to your question, like why kind of is Bolt seeing this adoption? Like what other things would you use, right, other than do this? The challenge is for a PM to set up a dev environment or designer. Like it is, if you go and join Meta or Netflix or whatever, the first like 4 to 8 weeks of your full-time job as a developer is setting up your dev environment.
Oh, really? That's crazy. I didn't realize it takes that long.
Yeah, it's like setting up your dev environment, learning how all this crap works that's been built up over decades.
That's true. Yeah, you have to get familiar with the code base and all that stuff.
But even just getting it running, getting it running on your computer.
That's crazy. Wow.
And so that's again, like you kind of look at design tools before. If it was like you had to download these things, you had to install them, you had to like learn how to use them. Like,
Oh yeah, get all like the libraries, the custom fonts, the graphics packs, and all that stuff. Yeah. Well, so it brings up an interesting question when like I don't know exactly how to ask it, but like the quality of the code, like how can I get comfortable thinking like, this LLM is like creating the code, and my code is very good. I'm just taking the AI code and like just there's a PM that's just throwing it into my code base. Um, how does Bolt kind of work and interact with that question? I guess.
yeah, no, it's a great question, right? I mean, I think a lot of what we see is people in like in companies, the initial use cases that are getting a lot of traction are prototype. So prior to this, if you wanted to make a prototype, like if we wanted to make, let's say we're working, Netflix or something, and we want to make the next great app for Netflix or whatever, next great feature in the streaming app or whatever. Um, the kind of the fastest way to do it would be go to Figma, make a whole bunch of different screens manually, and kind of link them together into all this other stuff, right? Um, the problem with doing it purely in a design tool though is that it's not real. Like there's always this gap between what's in the Figma and then what's in the code, right? And it's actually because when you actually are using the thing, you get to click on it and feel it. That's when you really know. There's a whole feedback loop that has to just happen around that. So often it's like design does this whole thing. Okay, development does this whole thing. Great. Now we have to do this whole thing between all of these groups, and like it's this whole handoff process that has to happen. But what's changed is that typically before Sonnet 3.5, it was more expensive to prototype in code, obviously, because developers are, it takes a while to write good software and developers cost a lot of money. Da, da, da. So everything design was the fastest way. That's no longer true, right? With a tool like Bolt, you take your component design system, like Netflix and every other major company has buttons and forms that every app that they build uses. It's all laid out, their design systems. They put it into Bolt and they say, we're making, the next great part of the Netflix's streaming app. It's going to look generally like this, needs to do this, da, 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 enter. And you spend an hour prompting the thing, and then you have a live version of it that you can use and test. And in real time, right, tell it to make changes to it.
And you can send a link to Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix, and be like, here's the thing. Like, this is our new ad product. Advertisers are buying ads in Netflix now, like the self-serve ad tool that we're going to. So then what I take, so let's say I get this, like, Netflix's self-serve ad tool as an example. Reed Hastings is like, yeah, looks good, approves, like we're going to ship it in, a couple months, whatever Netflix's timeline is. What would probably happen from there on the product and the engineering side?
Yeah, so I mean, at that point, they take the code out of Bolt. Probably, I mean, they scaffold out all the pages and UI they need. They make it look great or whatever. They might even have some functionality in. They take that, they push it to their Git repo. They're probably like committing things there or whatever have you. They will continue to come back to Bolt if they need to go and scaffold stuff or whatever have you, right? But in this sense, in the prototyping sense, it's really basically like get us the 0 to 80, 0 to 90 or whatever on the application, and then we're going to go and take it from there, right? And so that's a common one. Obviously, we see cases where people are building again full CRMs and like startup apps, et cetera, like all the full stack things from zero, front to back. It's totally possible to do. When you look at big orgs, they typically have a lot of very custom things though, where it's like the primary value here is just way faster prototyping, feedback loops, et cetera, with software where they normally would have had to do it all in design or something. So that's kind of one thing. The other one is like companies have to spin up a lot of like marketing landing pages, and just public website pages. And those are things where it's like code quality. It's like, yeah, you want it to be performant and stuff, but you're not talking about like with Netflix, the code that's transacting you buying and viewing ads is pretty important, right? Like you don't want to get that wrong because like, you have to report how well that thing did at earnings, right? And if there's bugs in that and you're misrepresenting,
It'd be like $1 billion mistake. Yeah.
yeah, it matters, right? So the code quality, that's really, really high stakes stuff. And a lot of mainline apps typically have these things at big companies. Your marketing landing pages, it's like, oh no, it's using a CSS selector that, is wrong or whatever, but it doesn't have any tangible impact on anything. So you kind of see this delta, and that allows your marketing teams to just go rip because it's like, okay, well, they don't need to learn how to use Webflow now. They don't need to bother developers for time. They can just go prompt their, new pages on the website or whatever have you. So at existing companies, those are the big use cases we see.
And then, so then just generally speaking, like you kind of take this and click and drag it forward. You think about 6 months, 18 months, a couple of years. How good is some of this AI code gen going to get, and how are some of these roles going to change? Like a product role at Netflix. We can think of new examples, or maybe we keep playing around with the same one. But how might that look differently going forward as it keeps continuing to get better?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was actually kind of skeptical, for uh, up until I saw the Sonnet stuff. I was kind of this mindset. I was like, I don't know how much better this, like, just code or AI, not code gen specifically, but like AI, like LLMs in general. I'm like, I don't know how much better they can generally get. You know what I mean? Where it's like really, really replacing workflows or seriously augmenting them. Once I saw Sonnet, I was like, right, this should have been obvious from the in retrospect. Like, you can do really good reinforcement learning on software. Like, if you wanted to like make train an LLM to be really good at like law or something, it's not deterministic meaningfully. Like, there's a lot of things that are subject to opinions of like the judge or society at that time, right? I mean, there's just so many variables. When you look at software and if you have this thing punch out code and you try to run it, it either runs or it doesn't. Like, it is very determinate, and you can do that a crap load of times per second. So you can actually, if you kind of focus your guns on making the best LM in the world at writing code, it makes sense conceptually that you could make a lot of progress by doing that. And that's exactly what Anthropic did and is doing. And now the other labs are gearing up to do the same. And so I think specifically CodeGen, I think that, and there might be other things that I'm just kind of not aware of, because they're outside of my kind of specific domain that kind of also fall into this, hey, this is deterministic and therefore you can, really reinforcement train against it. But I think software is going to be really the first thing that is sort of the breakaway success case here for LLMs. Yeah, I mean, because you can just keep making these things better and better and better the more compute you throw at permutating every type of app that could ever exist and throw into the training data.
So see, you talk about breaking out. I think, I don't know where we are in the story. We're like a couple weeks in, but like it became evident, like, holy shit, this is kind of working. Maybe we're in like the end of October. What is kind of going on your end as a founder? Like, you kind of went from I might shut the company down to holy shit, this is really working. Like what is going on in your mind and in your world and for the team?
Every day was different than the day before, because I mean, when we launched it was pretty barren. Like, we didn't have basic functionality like persisting chat messages and stuff. I mean, it was missing. It was
So it would lose some of the input that you give into it.
Yeah. So it would store your project files, but all of your chats would be gone. So people were like, what is wrong with this thing? And so our team, and then the other thing too is we launched, our SaaS plans, like our personal SaaS plans for StackBlitz, which Bolt piggybacked on. They've been $9 a month since 7 years ago, whatever, right? And so we launched this again. We didn't expect this crazy demand, and so people were coming in, and just I can't remember how many thousands or whatever people were signing up. And $9 of inference doesn't get you like that. If you're going to hammer this thing, that gives you like a day of usage or something. You know what I mean? If you're really hammering it, and that's what they were doing. And so but there's no other way for them to upgrade, like to get more tokens to use. So our team it felt like 300. Have you ever seen that movie?
Oh, the movie, yeah. You have an army of users like attacking, and you're just like trying to deflect the bugs and like build the features. Yeah.
It felt exactly like that. And so it was kind of like, 3 months before we launched, we were being crushed by existential void and dread. And then, and then in the months after the launch, and honestly, it's still today, it's just, we've been being crushed by demand. I mean, we're like a, 15, 20 person team. And, I think in month one, we had, it was like at least $250,000. In month two, in November, we had, I think, like 400,000 people that used the product. I mean, it was just like, and 20 million of ARR. I mean, across like 20 people is, I mean, you have tens of thousands of customers. We have no support team. I mean, it was insane. And so it truly felt like that scene where it's just, you have these 300 guys around by 10,000, people. And, all the folks on our team just, I mean, it just kind of flipped the switch and just did the impossible, because I mean, we were able to keep the service online. Like, we got to the point where we blew out Anthropic's GPU capacity at that time. And so, yeah, Dario emailed me. He's like, listen, we're going as fast as we can. We never, this is like the fastest thing we've ever seen grow on this platform at this point, right? And so it was just every day new challenges that were kind of coming in. Yeah, and so I think after month one, going into month two, it was like, okay, this is I was just waiting for the morning where I woke up and it just stopped, because that's every other launch I've ever done. Like that's kind of how it goes.
Like you just have this like cliff and it just kind of nosedives.
Yeah, and it just never came and it hasn't come, right? And so once I realized that, I was like, okay, so this is up until that point, I guess in my head it was like, this is a short term thing we're growing into.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's like this. How often does this happen? Look at all the other launches that happen every day, month, or week. It's like this. I've done this for like 15 years. I've been building startups and products, whatever. I've never seen anything like this, like personally, right? And so finally it clicked though for me. I was like, this is the new normal. Like this is it. And so at that point, we're like, we need to go raise money, because this, in order to scale to this demand and that's a lot of the pieces, like the kind of the story about the guy, who built the website for Star, like, oh wow, this is better, this easier than Wix. Like it was like, oh my God, like there's all these no code tools that only exist because how else would you let non-technical people like write code other than some drag and drop thing? That's gone now. The entire category is gone. Like because AI can write good code from text, right? Like there's all these. It's like became very clear. Holy crap! This is an entirely, the entire software world order is getting rewritten, and Bolt was really the first product that came out and really cracked it and really proved it. Now there's a lot of other companies that are kind of coming in and doing this in various ways, but it was like this is the moment that we've been working for 7 years.
Yeah. Well, congrats. I don't think I've ever actually said that, but like it's pretty incredible. Like I think it's probably, maybe I mentioned earlier, like, I think it's probably like one of the fastest, most sustained, maybe aside from ChatGPT. I think ChatGPT got to like 100 million users within a month or two. So, but it's on like a comparable scale of like, to your point earlier, it's like, holy shit, this is like an insane moment. So
thanks. Yeah. It's our team. I mean, yeah, all credit to our team, because it's just been, the amount of like work and just how high pressure that, especially the first 2-3 months was, I all our core folks have been working, we've all been working together for 5+ years. And so that, I don't know many other, I think other startups would have been challenging, just the level of trust you kind of needed to make that magic happen.
So I think like an interesting kind of like segue and something to think about is you said, okay, we probably need to raise money because we need to like figure out how to like just manage this demand and work with it, keep growing. We were talking before of like, you selectively disclosed like, hey, we hit this specific milestone. You said it publicly. How did you decide like what you shared about how well things were going publicly?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like, I'll try and like kind of rewind my brain to the various points, because we shared two numbers. One was after month one, we went from 0 to 4 million on month one. We actually did more, but we undersold what we had done.
Oh, you just said 4, even though you're a little further.
Yeah, I think we were like 5 or something like that. But we didn't want to, like, because again, at that time I was like, this tomorrow could be the day that it just starts going down. So we should probably have a little bit of buffer on whatever the public number is, right? and so Anthropic did a case study on us, where they were like, the title of it was like 0 to 4 million ARR in 4 weeks or something like that.
We'll throw a link to that in the description show notes for people to check out.
They did a really awesome. It was like a really excellent case study that they did. Where they really a lot of case studies you read, they're just kind of like bland and it's just like puff stuff. They really dug in on like what was interesting here.
Wow, 99% reduction in development costs for Bolt users. That's an insane number.
Huge. I mean, and this comes back to that guy CJ, the $7 inference to $9,000 thing. This guy Paul, who built his CRM on Bolt, he got a quote for like $30,000, 6-month time frame to build that CRM. He paid $300 on Bolt and had it done in like 2 or 3 weeks. right? So, and that's like the 99% number is like a consistent number we see across the use case of people that are building real stuff here, right? So it was like nuts. And that's when the pieces were coming together at that time. And so I think we went live with them because it was just, this is crazy. I think at that time we were starting to think, maybe we go raise money at some point or something. Um,
So for a while, you were like, that wasn't really a thought.
No, I mean we were just so slammed just keeping stuff online. It was hard for me to imagine stepping away to go raise capital, honestly, because it's such a small team stretched across so much. And then by the end of month two, when we saw just an unbelievable acceleration in month two, where we went from 5 to 20 or whatever, and it was probably I think it was Thanksgiving week. My chief of staff and I he flew out here because we were like if you're going to raise money, right, it's like the end of the year thing is always sucks because no one's raising money past week 2 of December, right? So it's either we raise money now, or we in the new year we go and raise money. And I was like, we should just do this now because I want to hit January 1st just gunning. Um, and so for that reason, and also just, that 0 to 20 million in 2 months number. I think I went on Sarah Guo's podcast, priors, and that's where I think we originally dropped that info. But yeah, I mean, so I think strategically it was, I think the first 0 to 4, we, you know, I think that if you're really confident in your numbers, I think it's like fine to share this stuff. I think a lot of people are like very cagey about it, but it's I think it's like totally fine to share. On the fundraising thing, this is an interesting one though. The company strategy to date, like we took a very unconventional approach to announcing fundraising stuff, where we actually had raised our Series A, like a year or two before we had announced it. And same with our seed round. So we kind of had this thing where we would only announce our funding after we had already raised the next round.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that like back in like 2022, I think we announced our seed round, which had actually happened in 2019.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And the reason for this is we wanted to fly under the radar until the moment came where it was like this hit the gas, because the deep technology plays, the value tends to accrue to the first mover, right? As so long as like the market opportunities really don't take our foot off the gas. And like a lot of founders, like I feel like you want to like go and like get all this press, but, oh, we raised a seed round,
Yeah, it can feel really good to have people like texting you and being like, "Congrats," and
like,
you're like,
"You made it, man!" Like you just so good, but it's actually like all that is bullshit, right? It's just like, no, you didn't make you sold a piece of your company.
yeah, you own less, and you like, yeah, you have to like actually like move faster now, or else.
Totally, right? And I like so it's like, to me, it's, and earlier in my entrepreneurial career, it's like there's like this ego thing where it's kind of like, oh, like how much you've raised, and like after it's like when we did StackBlitz, I'd gotten to that point where I realized this shit doesn't matter, and if you focus on that stuff, you're screwed because you're going to be focusing on the wrong things, right? And so we just we flown under the radar. Our competitors must have been just like, God, why won't these guys die? Like they only raised like a seed round, and so this is and none of them took an interest in what we were doing because they were like, those guys are nothing. They have nothing. They are nothing.
Yeah, no one cares about these like cloud or like browser operating system thing. Like, must not really work.
100%. And the other thing too, I'll say to entrepreneurs is like, it gives you like you should just be behind the closed doors doing the hard work and just like and honestly doing it. And the thing is, if you don't go make a whole fuss about raising money and stuff, if it doesn't work out, it's not this whole thing where you have to be, it's you didn't go and make a whole fuss about it, right? Like it allows you to be logically, intellectually honest about what you're doing, the actual opportunities in front of you. And I think it just takes like discipline, right? To just kind of like, set that stuff aside.
I was gonna say I had a similar thing with I did a first close for my second fund in May of 2022. It went exactly as you could imagine, trying to raise money in May of 2022. It was like, I mean, and I'm just glad, like, I don't really, I don't even think I've ever said like how much money I've ever raised. Like, Banana has this much AUM because like it's been up and down. At 1 week is like amazing. I'll get great news, and then like one day I'll get like 2 companies shut down or whatever. It's just like it's not up and to the right. So I also similarly, like, for was almost like his public, as I'm like, I kind of became an influencer accidentally. I probably shared a little bit too much in 2021, but it was like, it's interesting. This whole like build in public concept of like, who does it actually benefit? Like, is it actually helpful to be super vocal about certain things? I'm not sure. And it is tough when you say like, you make a big deal about something, like, I don't know, like there's certain things like, oh man, like I wish I had not said that publicly because it doesn't look good now. So
Totally. And it's like a balancing act, right? Because I feel like, by the way, we did our A right at the same time you closed your fund. So I know what you're talking about. That was insane. Like we started that process like a week, like the week that, Putin invaded Ukraine, right? Which is when all the indexes started sliding. It's just like, great timing. This is awesome. Like worst fundraising experience ever.
so what was that exactly? You like, so what did you raise on? Like, what you raised a Series A? Like, like take me inside that one.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever talked about this one publicly because we had never announced we'd raised the money. And then, by the way, we are so scrappy at the company. We had the majority of that capital still in our bank account when we did our Series B, like 2 years later, whatever, right? But at that time, like we had enterprises that were adopting StackBlitz. We had this like enterprise product.
So this was just like engineering team. You'd have like 1,000 engineers at say Netflix or whatever that were all using the StackBlitz terminal.
Yeah, and they're using it for like ancillary use cases and that sort of thing. And what I kind of noticed with that is like I think during the 2020 2021 era, enterprise companies were just they were very hungry to buy almost anything. And then after 2021, with kind of market reset, the appetites changed completely for very good reason, right? And so things were like under a lot of scrutiny for the business value they provide. And the problem with like the StackBlitz product is like developers weren't using it like how Cursor is today being used by developers, where it's like it is the thing they're using. It was like a tool they're using to like prototype a little thing or whatever have you. PMs can't use it because they don't know how to code, right? Like there's none of this what we're seeing with Bolt, where you kind of like take frontier AI, merge it with our technology stuff. But there's some early signs of like we inked some very good customers that typically a seed company would not be able to sort of get, just because like developers did love our products. We were able to land at a couple of great orgs. And so we raised the money to like go and kind of scale that stuff out, et cetera. And we just ran into lots. I mean, and again, it came at that moment where the the macroeconomic environment, I mean, completely changed. So the business we had been in was no longer as like, high growth lucrative as it was, compared to even like 6 months earlier than that. And so that's we were in this long grind, where we were really trying to, invest in our GTM machine and make that stuff work. And we did great work. That's the thing, is it's like, that's the hard thing about startups is like, you just have to be okay. Just like, you have to be like find fulfillment in just doing good work day in, day out, regardless of the challenges and whatnot. And really trying to maintain an optimistic perspective on things, even when things are not like working. Right. And, because it's really like, and especially if you don't see clear, like kind of what we saw with Bolt, I knew we didn't have like that. The market wasn't pulling the product in our hands. Money wasn't just getting thrown into us. It's like, why are we going to go and spend a crap load? Like, why are we going to go spend all the money we raised at the Series A if we're not seeing that, right? Like, we need to be working smarter and taking very smart bets and just really going deep and iterating, et cetera. Once we see it, sure, let's crack it open. But, I think it's like kind of easier to lie to yourself and be like, oh, we raised a Series A, we just need to go hire a head of this, a VP of this, and then you end up with this bloated company that's not doing anything, and so anyways, but that's the hard thing is you have to just be comfortable. It's a lot like training for an Ironman. You have no idea if you're going to be able to do it. You're on the weekends, if you want to actually do it, you're sitting in a bike saddle for 6 hours a day, like every weekend. And it's like, you got to find enjoyment in that, right? Or at least find peace with it,
Yeah, well, I was going to ask, like, what did you, and it's actually a question from Alex on the Chainsmokers, Manis. I know they're one of your investors. He was like, how, just like, you should have, like, just ask him, like, how the heck did they just kind of stick with it for so long? Like, was there a certain thing that, and maybe you kind of already described it a little bit, but like, how do you think you and the team just kept at it despite things not quite seem like they were working yet.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we were kind of getting to the end of the rope. I mean, first and foremost, though, it was like it's always been fun to work here. Like we all have a lot of fun, and then I think that the a lot of people say that they're like, oh, we love our startup is so great,
We have a great
but it's like
culture, yeah.
yeah, all this crap, right? But the reality is like the original founding engineers and my co-founder and I, like all of us are just have become really good friends. My co-founder and I have been best friends since we were, we grew up down the street from each other in Chicago. I've been building software and startups ever since. And we just happened, our founding engineers, we met them because they were actually users of the first version of StackBlitz in 2017.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And so then they've been working with us remotely for ever since. And you know, and that core crew is just really and then there's some other people that kind of joined up through 2020 2021 as well, that we've all just stuck together and we just have fun working with each other, and we're working on cool technology. Like the technology of StackBlitz, like Web Container, was like mind blowing. When we announced that in 2021, it was like it was an undeniably like great technical achievement that was like for the first time ever done in a browser, and so people were really stoked about it. And so I think I guess to me, it's like I think I would say this for everyone on the team, that it's not like, obviously we're running a venture backed company, right? But why we're kind of getting up in the morning is just because we like building cool stuff, like that's, and then why my co-founder and I started the company was that we, at our previous company, we needed in-browser dev environments basically. And we looked out there, for what was out there. And I was like, we were teaching that our previous company was this educational company, kind of like Pluralsight, but we were teaching web development basically. It's like a lifestyle business. And
I always love that word, lifestyle business. Like
it's, I'm on a VC podcast, so I can't be like, it's a startup, because it was making, I don't know, like 10K a month or 20K a month. So it's something, it was not an up and to the right. So I was like,
lifestyle business. It's always funny, like, and somebody like VCs will be like, yeah, that guy, it's just a lifestyle business. They're making like 50 million a year, right? It's like way more than you've ever like accomplished or built. Like people are just like dunking on like the lifestyle business. And it's like, meanwhile, like your entire portfolio, all your portfolio companies have like no revenue and like there's turmoil and like, but I have respect for anyone who can make a viable, sustainable company, build something that people want.
Absolutely. And I got to tell you, I think it was such an important experience for Albert and I to do, because we had tried some like venture back stuff before things through the educational thing. And I, like most startups, it just like didn't work for whatever reason, right? Like, like just no product market fit, whatever have you. But it was like cool to do things here where we were like, we bootstrapped that from like, we were broke. I mean, like, literally just, we bootstrapped it from nothing.
Like you had to make money. Like you needed to live. Yeah.
Yeah. Had to. And like to cut our burn down, we ended up living at a fraternity live out house in Seattle. I don't think I've ever talked about this publicly either, but like we were at this like frat live out house living at like $100 per room per month sort of thing, to like keep us afloat. Right. It was pretty ratchet at this place.
Just both of you in one room, $100 a month.
Yeah. And so it's like, that's the cheapest. Yeah, I mean, cheapest deal ever. And we were like in our early 20s, so it was kind of fun to like, there's parties and stuff. It's a frat house, right?
Oh, so wait, so you were living in a frat house?
Yeah, it was like the fraternity live out house. There's the big frat house and there's like a little house next to it where like some of the elders would get to move to or whatever, and they would occasionally rent it out to people. One of my friends was finishing school there. He got us in for $100 a month thing, and we're there just like teaching web development courses while at whatever you can imagine frats are doing. Every day of the week in the background, right?
Was it online teaching classes?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, at least you're like having like moms come into the frat house, like learning how to like.
It made recording our screencast hard because it's like, hey, so guys, what's the party schedule this week? Right? 10 a.m. Okay.
Yeah, certain time windows. When are they all going to be like hungover and passed out and like no activity?
Like, you guys want to come out with us? No, we gotta record a Node.js screencast, man. But anyway, so we were bootstrapping and like it taught us a lot about how to like man, when you are literally living hand to mouth, right? It's like you understand how far a dollar can stretch, right? And so we took those lessons when we started StackBlitz. We took all those lessons, and then our company is just like the capital efficiency of this thing is nuts. I mean, it's like it's crazy.
So how do you be capital efficient? Like if I'm a founder that, let's say I raise like a couple $1 million and I'm like, wait a second, like I don't have to spend all this money. Like how would you advise someone to just say like, hey, here's what you should probably think about? It's just like things you maybe do or don't need to spend money on, how to, make the dollar last a little bit longer.
Absolutely. I mean, certainly at the early stages of a company, it's like, I mean, typical things that people will spend money on that are dumb, like offices, right? I mean, like you like get like, I mean, not saying that, not saying go to live out of a frat house, right? But like
Yeah,
go
nice office can be good.
yeah, rent an apartment or something, right? And just or do it remote. I mean, that's a great way to save money. I think especially in the Bay Area, not to not to it can work in some cases, but I mean, there's phenomenally talented people around the globe, and if you're like a remote company, that's a huge advantage, right? Because the comp expectations in SF, because it's so expensive to live here, is just insane, right? Don't spend money on PR agencies and crap like that when you're a seed company, right? I mean, there's just like so many things that people spend money on and spend their time on, like going and talking at like conferences. Like it's just like, and then especially now that we've like raised money, I can't believe how much stuff it's like hits your inbox when you go like raise money or whatever.
Really, what's been the most surprising?
The sheer volume of stuff that people try, like, and they're all nice people and stuff, right? But it's like, can you go to dinner? Like we're getting this like group of people together for a dinner, and like there's this conference, you can come talk of it, and and like some of the stuff is like, okay, well, like is there business value to like going and like are there people there would be prospective customers or something, right? But 99% of the stuff is just like stuff where it would feel good to show up to it, and and it's like, oh yeah, like I'm like a founder or whatever,
Yeah,
right?
I'm LARPing as being like a startup founder.
Yeah, it's like, and it's all bullshit, right? It's like the reality is like, if we're gonna go and hit our ARR target this year, it's like me in front of this desk, sitting with my team or a remote company, just grinding, doing the work, right? Like that's like, we raise money, like the last thing that I should be doing is going and like signing autographs, or not that anyone wants mine, but like metaphorically, like going and like wasting my time, like it's some dinner of people. It's like, dude, if there's people there that want to do business with us, I'll get on a Zoom call with them for 20 minutes. You know what I mean? It's like, but a lot of people, I feel like a lot of people, I just think there's this reward mechanism that seems to happen where you're in TechCrunch or this or that, and it's kind of and it's all 99% of that is crap. I mean, it's just not actually how great stuff gets built, right? And
I guess I'll say thank you for coming on my podcast. I mean, assuming there's been a lot of people who want to have you on, I'm just glad, I'm in the top 1%, I guess.
No. I mean, but I love your stuff. It's I think podcasts are great because it's fun to sit down and like we're having a real conversation here, right? We're actually talking about real stuff, and it's the stuff where it's like, just going to like networking events and stuff like that. That's the stuff that's just, not, it's not a good use of a founder's time. And you get that regardless of the stage that you're at. When you raise a seed round, you're going to get invited to stuff like that. You're going to get invited to tons of this sort of stuff.
So you personally kind of filter of like, will this be valuable for Bolt and like help with new customers, maybe from a recruiting perspective, maybe from like a capital, like fundraising perspective, maybe like I'll learn something new or something like, is that generally the framing that you would kind of use to just filter this stuff out?
Totally. And yeah, 100%. That's kind of always been my I kind of learned this in earlier companies of like, these things just weren't good time investments. There was no ROI pan out. It's kind of hard because some things it's like, but I think I would just recommend founders to be default no, because your focus is like the most important thing. And like, let me put it like this, right? I mean, if going to meetups and dinners and all this sort of stuff, like truly was an indicator of like, building a great company, there's no reason that Bolt would exist and be kind of growing as fast as it is, because I never go to this stuff, but it's again, it's very unconventional because I think that it's, there's, I think it's important, obviously, like I think on the flip side, we run a go-to-market machine here. So like running events, you want people to come to them and be cool. And so it's that same thing with other companies, or they want to build relationships. And so some of this stuff is good and important, but you just want to be selective with your time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think actually, and then continuing kind of like the capital efficiency, living in interesting places. There's also this one. This one is public. You at one point kind of, I guess I'll let you say the story, but yeah, at one point going back to the early days, there's a point you were living on $1 a day. You were living in a certain company's HQ, I guess. What was that story like? And then how recently was that?
Yeah, no, that was a long time ago. It was a long time ago. This is when I first came to the Valley.
Oh, so this
Um,
is like 15 years ago kind of a thing.
oh yeah, yeah. This is like 2011, 2012, I think, and I was like 19. Um, and I originally got to the Valley because Jeff Ralston, he started it was basically like a Y Combinator but for K-12 education startups, and they actually ended up pulling it back into YC, and then I think Jeff was like the president or the CEO of YC or something
Yeah, I
for a
was gonna
while,
say he
but
was like a partner there at least for a while, I feel like.
yeah, and that's kind of how he ended up as a partner there. Is they pulled Imagine K-12, the name of that thing, back in, and so back after high school, I was working on like a learning management system. Because like Blackboard sucks, right? Like it was like a terrible experience to
Oh,
use.
I use that in college. Yeah, I remember that.
And so it was like, I was like, my co-founder and I, Albert and I were good buddies, and we built a better version for our school, and we were like, hey, we can, this is cool. I'd much rather use this as a student. And so we got into Imagine K-12, came out here. And back then it was like the OG YC deal where you get like 20K and like that's it, and so that we ran through that in 3 months, right? Like in the Bay Area or whatever. And so ran out of money and to stay afloat. So Magic 12 at that time, AOL was kind of trying to reinvent themselves. I think they sold to like Verizon or something.
Yeah, $3 billion or something like that, or maybe they no, I think they got bought by Yahoo, and then Verizon bought Yahoo or something. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And so at that time they were trying to turn around the company, and so like we need to get like young startup blood into the building, and so they started renting out office space to startups and stuff. And so Magic 812 had gotten an office at AOL. It was a super cool building. It was down in Palo Alto off of Page Mill, and Page Mill El Camino. And all the companies in Magic 812 had access cards to get into AOL's headquarters. And so at 19, I had a backpack with all my earthly belongings. And I was like,
What can I do with this?
out of money. And we would go there, and they always had like cup of noodle. Like they had the little snack bar with like cup of noodle and this and that. And then teams at AOL would order food, and there'd always be leftovers or whatever, and they'd be in the fridge. And they would get thrown out at the end of the week if no one ate the stuff. And they had a gym which had a shower in it. Even you could even run laundry there.
Do they have like nap pods and like beds and stuff like
They
that at
did.
that point?
They had a room called Nap Quest, because AOL owned
MapQuest.
MapQuest, so they had at least called Nap Quest, which had one of these you could like go in there and sleep. So as you can maybe imagine, like that became my home for a couple of months. And so I was just it was I had like infinite energy as like a 19-year-old. Like it's hard for me to imagine I did that, because now I'm like, God, there's no way I would ever do that. But
I mean, I'm married with kids. Like, trying to like have my kids living in AOL headquarters is like impossible. Like, there's a minimum burn rate. Like, your burn rate definitely goes up with certain phases in life, and it's like, I don't know, like your kids like they want dance classes, and it's like, all right, this is like the price that I got to pay every month.
Totally. And even just from a personal comfort perspective, it's like, the idea of living out of it's just, yeah, at that age, your standards are a lot lower. Right. And so I loved it. I actually really loved being there, because it was like, I was coding like, 12 hours a day. I was just, and I got away with it for a while just because the security guards worked 12-hour shifts. So like the morning guys would see me there and they'd be like, this guy's working hard, and the night guys would be there. Like, this guy's working hard, So it's just, they didn't really, there wasn't overlap between the night and the day schedules typically. So I became friends with a lot of those folks, and, or whatever. And yeah, so I was living on like $1 a day, because food and housing and whatever was like, taken care of basically. And every now and then I go to McDonald's and, get like this back when the dollar menu still existed. Yeah. It was
like actual dollar. Yeah.
Literally an actual dollar. And so, yeah, that's kind of, ended up building that startup. And the K-12 space is brutal. So like it didn't end up working out at the end of the day for that one. But that was actually kind of what ended up leading us into Thinkster, like the web-based courses stuff. Like that was kind of the origins of how that came to be, and then ultimately how Bolt StackBlitz came to be, which because that was on the end of that thing.
So I know so you did mention, I feel we've kind of like jumped around the story a bit, but you mentioned you raised like the hidden Series A around 2022, and you actually you did raise a Series B. I remember there was like a Bloomberg article, I think, that was like, like, oh, like Bolt might be like they're in conversations. So like what actually happened with the Series B? You obviously went from 0 to 5 to 20 million in revenue, and you started to think, you sort of said, okay, I should probably raise money at this point. Like, how did you approach all of that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, good question. For because of what was going on with kind of the rapid growth and just our team was so small. Like my chief of staff and I, we were the customer support team basically. And that inbox when we went to go raise money, that inbox was at 500 or 600. I mean, we were getting destroyed as is. After the couple week fundraise process, it was like 1,200 plus. Or, it just it just kept accumulating, right? So going into it, we knew that was going to happen. We were like, this is a dangerous thing that has to happen here because we're going to have to take our eye off the ball. Balls are going to drop. It has to be time box. We have to go to time box the process because we can't go and spend a month or two or whatever on this thing. We need to get it done and move on. And so what we ended up doing was rented out there's this really awesome coffee shop. Actually, shout out to them. So there's this coffee shop called Lighthouse Coffee, I think, in South San Francisco. I actually found out about a tweet because someone was like, "This is the most like." The most slept on, coffee shop in San Francisco. It's beautiful. It's like never crowded. And it's true. It's amazing. It's like fantastic. And it's a little outside the city, which is why it's not just crammed every day. So amazing. So anyways, they have a boardroom you can rent there.
Is it the Lighthouse Cafe or the Lighthouse SF?
Maybe the Lighthouse SF. It's in like South San Francisco. That would be the one, I think. And it's modern. It's just beautiful what they've done with the thing. And great food, great coffee. And so I've been going there for a couple of months, and they had a boardroom because we're a remote company. We don't have an office, and so rented a boardroom there. And then just met with a whole bunch of from our investor network. We got introductions to a handful of folks that were interested in chatting, and brought them there, met with them, and made a slide deck and stuff, and and I think it's like given where we were at, is it was understandable. Like I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, it's like you do want to like have the process move quickly, but often they'll be like arbitrarily, they're like, we're closing Tuesday, and if you da 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 da, and like what I mean, like there's kind of this artificial thing, but with us, it was like, listen, we have to get back to this thing because if we don't, like we're gonna we kind of risk ruining what's happening here, right? And so anyway, so that's how we ran it, and got to meet a lot of great folks. But yeah, that was you ever see that video of Lady Gaga when she was doing interviews? And she's like, "You only need one person in the crowd to like believe in you." And like, have you ever seen this video? Where
No, I've never seen this.
Okay, you guys to watch after this because it was a interview with Bradley. Like her and Bradley Cooper did A Star Is Born together or whatever, right?
Oh yeah,
and
that was a good movie.
A wonderful movie, and so in the lead up, to like because the celebrities have to go and like advertise this, right, with interviews. So very clearly she had a script, like what something very inspirational to say, and it was like this movie is great because it shows that you only need one person to believe in you, and da 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 da. And so someone took a montage of all of the time she had said that.
Oh, on the whole press tour, she kept saying the same thing. Oh, amazing. Okay.
That's what fundraising feels like. You get like, and there's true meaning and depth. Like you don't want to, that's the hard thing about this stuff, right? A genuine storytelling. You're like, this is my view of reality, right? But you have to say it over and over and over and over and over again. That's what fundraising is. And so it's, I think if you want to do it well, you have to get really good at it's acting, like kind of channeling your emotions over and over, so.
And so it sounds like the best way to the way that you met people was through existing investors. You're like, hey, we want to raise some money. This is like the deck, the game plan. Like, who do you think we should meet? Is that kind of how it went?
Yeah, totally. And yeah, I think every time we go and fundraise, it's like, it's always an opportunity to bring new people onto your team, right? So it's always like, it's great to like go and chat. We have, in this round, GV Google Ventures, Eric over there, he co-led the round. I've loved working with him for the past 4 or 5 years. And so it's like, if you have investors that are down to lead the thing, participate, heck yeah. It's always good to just like see what other people can you add to your team, so to speak, right? Because that's basically what you're doing. And so like just ask our angel investors and the other VCs, hey, like what other folks do you think are really great? That would be really great for like kind of the challenges that we have to go tackle. Because like for us, like we were doing enterprise, we were an enterprise motion, and then overnight we broke up with a B2C company, and so it was like, okay, actually, it would be very smart of us to go and find folks that have done this before, that have actually helped, participate with scaling companies, that have done a prosumer B2C bottoms up sort of motion. And we had saw a little bit of that in our existing investor network, but we were under indexed. So it's like, going and talking to a lot of people, a lot of high quality people, is important, I think.
Okay. Yeah. And I think Emergence and maybe GV Coled. I think of Emergence as like the enterprise B2B software, or is that not true?
It's yeah. So and Joe, I've talked to Joe there for years, and so I'm stoked that I finally get to work with him because I really love Joe. So yeah, so he was the one that co-led the thing with Emergence, and yeah, they've done enterprise, but it was interesting. They've done a lot of prosumer, like with Zoom.
I guess Zoom. Yeah. Makes sense.
And so that was like a lot of, like when I talked with Joe over the years, like a lot of the stuff from Zoom, there's a lot of corollary with kind of like what the sort of adoption, how we're trying to, because, as we look at the B2B side of this, it's like, how do you kind of pull people into the business application of this and et cetera. Lot of work to be done there. But yeah, they have an incredible amount of knowledge in house of just how to, really build great prosumer bottoms up motions.
Makes sense. And you, so I guess, I don't know, when you announced, I think the number in the announcement was like 105 million, I think. Was that the A and the B like combined together?
Yeah, A plus B.
But it sounds like you didn't spend much of it. So you've got $105 million at least that's sitting there. What are you going to do with it? Like, what's the game plan now? Like,
not spend it. No, I'm kidding. We have to. I mean, we definitely. I think it's at this point in a company. I can't remember Sarah. Sarah, one of our investors. I can't remember what CEO had like kind of said this, but she had referenced it one time where it's like you have to know when to like lean in on a company, right? I remember I called her one day before, like, I think it was like the day before my Ironman. I was like, this is the lean in moment for us. It's like right now, basically. And so when you're kind of at this point, it's like you need to begin deploying capital to grow faster. And there's going to be lossy things that happen, but it doesn't matter because the rate of growth is so insane that you're dealing with, right? If you don't have a high rate of growth, it's to go and just start deploying millions of dollars or whatever is when you have like 10 million or something in the bank, it's like it might not be a good idea. It's very, very risky. Likely might not work out well. But for where we're at, it's like, yeah, there's lots of, we need to, we need to hire a lot of people. Like we need an actual, customer success team. We need to increase our engineering headcount by, 2, 3, 4x or something. Really, and invest in our go-to-market engine. And, cause we have like 2, 3 people there today. It's like, it's just, if we had a physical office, it's like, there's entire sections of the building. They're just empty.
you need to you need to do an add-on to the building, add a new wing, and like add a growth team, add a customer success, expand engineering by 4x.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's just for the scale that we're operating at, we're so, I think if you look forward, like this is why I say to the team is like, if you look forward a year, what would be one of the reasons we fail? It's like, we try and stay too scrappy because we don't scale up to actually really match the demand and make sure we're providing a great experience, right? Because you kind of have to unlearn some lessons based on, because this is an extraordinary new context we find ourselves in. What got us here won't get us there. And so we have to go and find really things that are smart to invest in, that where we also we have to be okay with more lossiness in bets being made and stuff, right? And scaling out our leadership team.
So it sounds like you're hiring some customer success people. How many people are you bringing on board in customer success? Just roughly, like all these numbers, like how many people are you thinking about hiring across all these categories? I'm just asking because there's probably people listening that are like, if they've made it this far, we're an hour in, and they're like, this sounds really cool. I love customer. I'm a customer success. I like this. I want to work for Eric.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk. Yeah. Let's talk about opportunities. I mean, so I think at customer success, I mean, we're hiring, probably half a dozen people at least in there, at least. On engineering, like, people that work on, they're like AI engineers or that do, full stack TypeScript, et cetera. We're going to be hiring probably a dozen people, just there over the next, 6 months or something. Same thing. People are great with product, like PMs. Like we don't have any PMs at the company right now. Like, it's like, that's a bit of a problem.
Is that you? Like, are you kind of like the product person?
Yep, kind of chief product guy at the moment. So that's a role that's top of the docket to get filled. Same thing like head of engineering. As we're scaling out these teams. And on the marketing side, I mean, like, talking about like we have a whole bunch of roles listed. If you go to stackblitz.com/careers, you can see all of them. But on the GTM side, there's a ton. I mean, we have like growth marketing. I think we're about to add like an influencer marketing manager, et cetera, et cetera. Like there's a, like RevOps. There's a whole, I mean, for the scale of revenue we're doing, I mean, typically you have like a year or two to kind of grow into this, but it's like I mean,
Yeah, usually you hire and then you kind of scale up into it. It seems like you're kind of you grew into it in a couple months, and now you're like, all right, we gotta like backfill almost this that we grew too fast for.
and it keeps growing, right? So it's like it's kind of this like cat and mouse. It's like we're like kind of catching up to this, and then we're like, okay, well, we actually need to. So now we're kind of like making hires where we're like, based on where we're going to be there, we need a CFO, we need this, you know what I mean, like, because we got to skate to where the puck seems to be going. Which is I've never experienced this sort of challenge, in my career.
So if I'm or if you're sitting in your seat of like you want to bring some people on, you're adding to the team, what is an ideal new I don't do you call them like bolters? Do you call them like stacker like stack blitzers? Like I don't know what the acronym is or like the wording for people, but like like how do you think about people you bring on the team? Like what do they usually look like? Are there any characteristics or personality traits that work best at Bolt or?
Totally, yeah, really good question. I mean, I think like uh, you know I think the most important thing is like to me is always like working with people that are really genuine. Um, and because I think that says a lot, like that word, like that's like when I met my wife, and like, I said this in my vows to her, but like she's just the most genuine person I ever met. And like for the first like months that that we were, dating, um, I I couldn't figure out if she was the most genuine person I ever met, or if she was like the most like believable sociopath, right? That really had me fooled. And I was like, I know there's got to be something that's not right. But she's just the most incredible genuine person. And those, but what's great was when you work with genuine people. There's none of this political crap, this ego crap. Like you can have real conversations and like and just like make sure that you know that we're just doing great work as a team. And you build real friendships. Like a case in point, like the folks, the original 5-7 people that have worked here, they've been here for 5+ years. It's like it's because it's just they're good people. They're not like egotistical. They're very open to feedback. They're open to learning things that we're you know what I mean. It's just kind of the perpetual learner mindset, and just very chill. Very chill in the sense of how we work with each other, but also like the people on the team are very intense about like doing great work and like really pushing themselves to the limit. Like, a lot of the people on our team have been like either, like semi-pro athletes or like, have been, semi-pro, whatever, musicians or whatever. I mean, it's just, there's people, the extracurriculars are nuts here. So anyway, so it's like, I think that's to me is like, it all starts with that. It's like great people, smart, hungry, down to learn, down to, down to join 300 in protecting Sparta or whatever. Yeah.
I actually have someone. I think I'll maybe after we're recording, I'll send your info. But like she's awesome. I would love to hire her personally. I'm not really in a position to hire, and like I don't think she really wants to do VC, but I've been trying to get her a job at one of my portfolio companies. So, but it sounds like I don't know. Well, we can talk about it later. But I think I have somebody that might be a fit for one of the things on the site. We'll throw a link in the notes too, just for StackBlitz/careers. StackBlitz.com/careers, and people can find it. And then, so you're hiring a bunch of engineers, product people. Product's going to change. You're going to build some stuff. How are you thinking about it just over the next couple of years? Like, what does the roadmap look like? What should we be on the lookout for?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think we're going to be investing pretty heavily in like the B2B side, really enabling companies to use it for like the use cases I was talking about, like prototyping and building their public websites and even building their own apps. Like as AI code gen is just going to keep getting better, right? I mean, over the coming months, I think we're going to see some new stuff coming out that is every time model updates come, We saw this with the second version of Sonnet at the end of October. We flipped that on the same day. Our conversion rates, cranked double digits.
So the product is getting better as the models get better, essentially.
Absolutely. And I mean, our product, we are ourselves are doing tons to make the product better. But the second the better model comes online, it's like it can be a 10x multiplier. And that's what happened before when Sonnet 3.5 came out. It was 10 times better than, the previous frontier stuff at doing code gen. What's going on with like Cursor, us, all these code gen things, it is all because of Sonnet 3.5. You take Sonnet 3.5 out of the equation, none of this stuff exists today, right? And so, it's like, I think over the, and now all the other frontier labs they get it. They're like, okay, we want to be best in class here.
Which is incredible for you, that's just like benefiting from them making their models better.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and I think there's going to be so many other different types of things that come out too, right? As a result of this, and so yeah, like I think, the next 6-12 months, we're going to see more models, which means more capabilities, which means, and so for us, like when we look at B2B, it's Cursor is the most successful thing when you look at a business adoption perspective right now, but that's largely because it's a very developer centric tool. We want to crack non-developer use cases, meaning, and developer use cases, of course, but like you have marketers, PMs, what does it mean to live in a world where the Fortune 500, the PMs are writing, more Jira tickets into Bolt and hitting enter than actually assigning it to the devs, right? Where the PMs are actually coding.
Plus, it feels like a lot of devs, like you hear, like it's not their favorite thing of like making small little tweaks, and like it's probably not the best use of their time either.
Exactly. It's like you want to assign the stuff to them that is actually intellectually challenging, right? That an LM is not going to be good at. And what are PMs great at? They're great at crafting great products, like all the little details of that experience. But they're like happy to be like going and hammering. Now, I'm kind of more of this. I'm like an engineer, but I'm also really more of a product guy. Like I would much rather, like I can write the code just because I have sheer force of will since my buddy and I were 13, because that's the only way you could do it. But I would much rather tell a thing to do it, than just get the result.
I think you mentioned before too, like you actually learned to code from reading those like books or whatever, like the learn to code books, like back in the day before like there was just go to the like Google, like how do you do C++, or like YouTube videos that would just teach you.
There was nothing. Yeah, I mean, this is back in like mid 2000s. My co-founder and I were 13, or Albert and I were 13, and like now there's so many great resources to like learn how to code. There's Code Academy and this and that, whatever. There's nothing like that. And so for our 13th birthdays, we asked our parents, like instead of an Xbox or whatever, we're like, can you get us these O'Reilly books? Because those things are like $200 a pop. It's like it's an Xbox in a book. And it was like, this is the only, if we really want it, this is the only way. And that's that's how Albert and I learned how to code. Is he and I both got books. We sat next to each other and just, if it was without Albert, I don't think I would have been able to learn, because it's like that setting up a dev environment is terrible. Most people churn out at that step because it's like getting stuff just working it's not even about writing the code. It's getting the environment going so you can even write the code. And then when you write the code, oftentimes the environment craps out for a billion different reasons, And so it was like Albert's always been more technically proficient than I am. And so it was like being able to really learn with him and from him was huge. Yeah, and so that's, he and I always, like, as we've been building StackBlitz and Apple, it's like we're like, we're building the tool we wish we had when we were 13, and heck, for everything else we built since then, but.
One thing I was super curious about though, like business model. It seems like you make money right now. Like I hit a paywall where it's like, if you want to make more changes, you got to upgrade. So I was like, all right, like it's going pretty well. This is pretty cool. Like I'll pay the $50 to like get more tokens. So how do you guys make money right now, and just how do you think that's going to change over time?
Yeah, I think, well, yeah, right now it's entirely inference, right? And I think, I think we were the first people to figure this one out with, the Sonnet 3.5 stuff, where prior to Bolt, I feel like, with Copilot and all these other things, there was kind of this like mental model of, oh, these AI tools you should charge for it like Netflix, where it's like $20 a month, all you can eat. But if you like eat too much, we have to slow them down because it costs too much money for us, right? But it's like low price and you can just like have it. You know what I mean? It's like that. And the problem though is now that CodeGen is so good, the ROI, the 99% cost reduction, anyone who knows the true value, the true cost of building quality software, they're like, I want more. And this is exactly what happened the first week we launched. They burned through their $9 of credit and they're like, let me give you money.
And so were you like gating people and slowing things down initially?
Unintentionally, because we only had one plan. It was like $9 a month, and you get some inference, and because we just thought people were going to casually use this thing. We didn't think, but people were like, I'm trying to build my product here, man. Like I went through $9 in like a day. Like how do I pay? Why won't you take my money? And so that weekend or that week, I was like, team, we have to ship multiple different tiers. I will work the weekend and stay up with whoever is going to do this with me, and everyone did, and we flipped it on. And that was really what we're seeing now with a lot of other stuff in the AI cogen space. People are pricing based on different tiers. So on Bolt, we have like 20, 50, 100, 200, and then you can also just buy inference add-on as needed. You look at like Cursor, they have usage-based billing. Like everyone's starting to do this thing where it's like, okay, actually, because the expected ROI of inference is so high now, people are going to spend more money. They're going to want to spend more money to use it. And so I think we're going to continue to see a lot of that as our revenue stream is like, selling inference or selling our agent. But we're also going to be getting into the game of just integrating hosting and databases and stuff. We're like, instead of having to like go, if you're a developer, you can go sign up for all these things individually. But within Bolt, it just makes sense. You'd have centralized billing where you can add on hosting from Netlify or add a database from Supabase, and it just works. Same thing with like domains. Like imagine coming to Bolt and it's like, hey, I want to make a website for my VC firm, right? Here's the name of it. Oh, the .com's available. Do you want me to buy that for you? Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Boom, live. And there's nothing that you had to do there, right? I mean, you're chatting, and you now have a .com domain with a website deployed to it. You have a database, backing it or whatever. Like that's, within the next, 6 months, like that's what you're gonna be able to do on Bolt.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah. I was going to say, I saw the Supabase button. I remember I didn't click deploy because I got stuck on a YouTube API integration. It was 12:30 last night. I'm like, shit, I got to go to bed. My wife was like watching, there's a show on Netflix. It's called Glow. It's like it's a women's wrestling league from the 80s. And it's like the show, like profiling the league. Have you come across the show at all?
No.
It's like a crazy show. It's like I don't even know. It's basically like all these like struggling actresses that like join this wrestling league, and it's like a show about them putting together this like amateur wrestling league in the 80s. It's like a recent show from like a couple of years ago. Anyways, my wife's been watching that the last couple of nights, and I'll just like chill at the table, watching the show. And it was like 12:30. I was like, oh shit, I gotta go to bed. I gotta wake up. I gotta be awake in 7 hours. So we gotta go to sleep. So I got stuck on the YouTube API integration. But like that seems like something you could probably automate eventually, right?
100%. Yeah. And I think that's what our team's like, we're just focused on this long tail of like all these different APIs you want to use, just making it seamlessly work without you having to, interfere much with it. Right. We've done a lot of that with like the Supabase stuff and, like 3D models on the web. Like there's a ton of stuff we do. And like, look at the next year, it's like, there's just gonna be even more of that,
So it's just continuing to make it go more and more of like type in a prompt. It just does what you want, and just continue to like, just dive deeper and deeper into making that even more fluid and seamless.
Absolutely. We're like, where you can come to this and you can literally say, hey, make me a reasonably sophisticated application and zero shot. It provisions the infrastructure, and it has a real working version on the first shot. Right. And sometimes you can get that today. Other times it takes a couple of extra prompts or whatever, but it's like having it be kind of like Slack, where a lot of the magic was the integrations. I think a lot of that's going to be like this too, where it's like, oh, I need the YouTube API. I need it, GPT 4.0 to do da 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 da. Yeah, I mean, it's just having that stuff built in and really just making it magic, and smooth. So
maybe like one more big question I wanted to hit on. It seems like you guys have built a pretty good community. Like you kind of mentioned, you have all these people. Like if you go on YouTube, examples of people that have like 100,000 view videos of like how to use Bolt, blah blah blah. How did that develop? And like, or was it an accident? Did you do it on purpose? And how should I think about kind of building a community around my product if I'm a founder? Like, what do you think you did right? And just how should somebody think about that?
great question. I think for StackBlitz, like we spent a lot of time over the past 7 years, like building a community of folks like that, like if developers are using our product. And it's like when we launched with the tweet, it was like we had, I don't know, 20,000 or 30,000 followers on the account. And people would generally like what the stuff we would put out. I mean, this went totally mega in a way nothing else we'd ever done before, right?
Yeah, it's almost like your community like lifted and pushed it forward because you had spent so much time nurturing it and like it truly resonated. And so it wasn't like you had to like manufacture this launch. It was literally like you built like the muscle of just here's something and it's stuck and people went with it.
Yeah, and I would recommend anyone who's doing startups, right? Like build community along the way, no matter what, because exactly what you just said. It is useful to have that, like to have a distribution mechanism when you have something that's really going to work. The message will get out if you're cultivating community and building great stuff and like helping people be successful. Da da da. Great example of this is Joel Spolsky. Um, his blog, Joel on Software, I think it was, right? I mean, like, tons of programmers would read that back in the 2000s or whatever. And so when he launched Stack Overflow, he wrote a blog post about it, but that was what seeded Stack Overflow's, growth. Yeah, because he's just making content, right? Like he's a smart guy. And it's not like fluff stuff. He's like real stuff, right? It's like he's just talking about software and what he learned in his time as Microsoft and how he's building fog bugs and whatever, right? And so when the time came when he launched Stack Overflow, boom, and so I think that's really like I think from a distribution point of view, that's the value of really building community. And so that up to the launch of Bolt, that's been key, right? We've been investing in that for 7 years. I think did a really good job there. When we launched Bolt, so much stuff was going wrong, right? Where it's like, there's no chat history. You can't buy more than $9 of inference. Okay, now we fixed that, but like, there's all these bugs that are happening. It was just endless. And the problem is, you have to. It's early. Like we didn't have a support team to answer all these questions. And so what we did, I can't remember what week of the story this was. Maybe it was week 3. I was like, team, we all got to get on a live stream every week, and where we're just answering questions, telling people what we're doing, and like whatever. And it became this kind of staple of the first 2-3 months there, where we got to meet people. We got to like really know them, and they were we invested in our Discord and like people, and now we have like just half dozen people that are just these amazing folks. They're just like helping other people be successful with the product, working with our team, getting feedback to them, and hundreds or thousands of other people that are also helping people that are not just kind of directly manning our Discord or whatever, creating content, helping people get unstuck with stuff. And I think for them, like when we saw people doing this, we would boost their tweets. We would like put a spotlight on them, like, this is awesome, this person's great. And so they're able to like build a presence, and actually know that we cared and appreciated about the stuff they were doing. And so every week at our office hours, we would like do shout outs or spotlight or something. We would all pick, the top things that we saw that week that we wanted to like give a shout. We'd send a T-shirt to the different people that got picked or whatever. Each person on our team would pick multiple people or whatever. And, just it made people know that we're not just like some corporate thing. It's like we're just people trying to make a thing. And we're like, I remember this one of the live streams. I was like, listen, if you're watching this, like, we need your help. Like, there's more people that need to understand how this stuff works than we can possibly tell. So if you see people on Twitter or on Discord or whatever asking questions, the answer, please help them. Like, like it's help you. And everyone who's doing this already, like, thank you. Like, is building this community. And it was like, and that's what we saw. I mean, it's just people helping and us telling them how much we appreciated it. And I think for AI tools, this is really important because when you get that input box, it's like, how do I best use that?
Yeah, it can kind of be overwhelming. Like it's so simple, but it's also like you don't know what to do and you don't know what the capabilities are.
Absolutely. And especially a tool like Bolt, where if you haven't done a lot of product building or web development before or whatever, and you come in, you're like, build Google for me. It's like, and so people are like, this thing doesn't work. You can't do it. And it's like, okay, yeah, but like, let's talk a bit about that and like how you actually, and you like a really good example of this is Midjourney. Like this is one of their big moats is like that they have built an incredible Discord community where people are sharing their prompts and they're like teaching each other how to use the product successfully, which then further informs the Midjourney folks on how to better tune their models and whatever. Right. And so that's for us, I think we've done a really good job of that. We're like, we learn we are no, like after like week 2, we were no longer the domain experts of how to best use this product.
That's crazy. So you had like your customers who knew it better than you did.
And now we've brought some of these people on contract to work with us so we can actually meaningfully have them do an R&D for us and go, how do we bring these approaches back into the product, and how do we help the community, et cetera. So yeah, like that's especially for these AI things, you basically want to create a community where you can kind of crowdsource the knowledge, because you're not going to be able to figure it all out yourself. Like you're not. Like you have to create a collaborative place where people can, go and experiment and really be like rewarded for doing cool stuff.
Yeah. You also open source everything too.
Yeah, yeah. The core version of Bolt, we actually open source because, again, we didn't think it was going to be this huge thing, and also at the time we were like, there's not, like, when we went to go build Bolt, like there's nothing out there that's anywhere close to being open source, and we were like, this is kind of a gap in the market, like we feel like we oughta, we don't see it felt uncomfortable because we're like, is this a terrible idea? We're like, listen, if we have to continue making this the best product. I think like GeoHot had a podcast one time, like he's working on Comma, it was like maybe a year or two ago, but he said something like, the only reason to be afraid of open sourcing your stuff is if you think that you are gonna run slower than the competition. Like something like that, basically, right? Like the only reason you should be afraid of open sourcing your code is basically if you think that you can't iterate the fastest. Yeah, like, and it's like, and I think it's I'm not saying that that's like, I don't think that's universally true, but it is an interesting point though, of thinking, okay, you can actually open sourcing stuff. And we saw this with StackBlitz. Like we're one of the core, investors in Veet, which is just like the build tool that's kind of taken over the web development world. And
Oh yeah, I've heard of it before. It's like, is it the green logo, I think?
yeah, it's like, I think like it's got like a little purple V, it's looking thing with a lightning bolt in it. And we've released a whole bunch of open source ourselves over the years. And like releasing good open source software is a huge tide lifter for the company that is actually doing that work or investing in that work. And so when we put Bolt out there, we're like, we think this will actually help us get people to adopt Bolt because they can actually see how it works and fork it and do cool things with it. And that's exactly what's happened. It's actually kind of cool now where, because we had open source Bolt, when all these new models are coming out, often Bolt is one of the things that people are testing them against, because it's, what other production tool can you say, oh, DeepSeek came out. How do we kind of test whether it's useful in a real product? Well, unless you're the company that owns that proprietary product to get the data, you can't. And so like a lot of the frontier labs are actually using, it's called bolt.diy. They're using Bolt DIY to like just plug in their models and see, okay, how well does Bolt perform with this new model?
So I can basically go to bolt.diy. It looks like you have all the code. I can just like take all the code, spin it up, put it in my own environment. And in theory, I like have Bolt existing, and I could, like, if I wanted to, I could like clone it and copy it or whatever. But it looks like what people do is they'll basically, like, Anthropic is using it to test Sonnet 4 or whatever the new, I think the 3.5 is like the current or what. So they'll test the new models they're working on the Bolt, their own Bolt environment internally.
And there's a lot of these open source models, like the open source community is just going and testing these things out. People are taking Bolt DIY and like stripping out parts of it and putting it into their own products and stuff, right? So you have like enthusiasts, you have research labs, you have companies using this, and what we've seen is just it's lifted the tide for us, because people are like, Bolt is, I think at this point probably the most widely known, widely adopted, whatever thing. And I think the open source strategy has been key for that, because people are adopting in just in ways that are the commercial version of the thing just couldn't. And it doesn't hurt. It has not hurt our ability, clearly, right, to like go and build a business on the thing. And that was kind of from the get go. It was an uncomfortable bet we made there, but we were like, we just think that this should be open source. Like nothing else exists. It'll be, it will probably only help us, which it has, because when new models come out, people are like, well, are you going to implement this? We're like, let's go look at the open source version. Like, and usually some of the open source world already tried it, already has all the data points on it, so we have this incredible amount of R&D happening against our product specifically, whereas everyone else is like, has to figure it out themselves.
So it's kind of like if I was like making a competitor, I like built the same thing, whatever, and Anthropic comes out with a new model, and it like might not be fine tuned for Turner.new or whatever. But it works in Bolt right out of the box immediately. And people are like, oh, why am I using the Turner new? I should just use Bolt.
Exactly. And that's kind of the downstream effect. The long tail of it is that if this continues to be the main thing, that piece is some type of test environment that people are looking at as they fine tune things or train things or whatever, it's going to just continually just kind of keep getting better for Bolt, or things that look very much like Bolt. And that helps us, and that helps anyone else that's using, Bolt DIY for whatever use case, right?
Yeah. I guess if you're building all these different integrations and stuff, you just generally want people to like Bolt and use Bolt and just have it be more of a common thing. Like, why would you make an integration for something that nobody uses?
Totally. And I think, and for us too, it's like people are coming to Bolt.new are like, most of them are not developers, so they would never like to go and clone a repo, and they're just not going to do that. Even a lot of developers are like, I have better things to do with my time. Like, get API keys and run this thing locally myself. And then the production version is more reliable. We have the whole things that are not in the open source version, or whatever. Like, so it's like, it's just really symbiotic, which is super cool, because there's not a lot of examples of this in the AI world, because I think there's like a clear incentive for things to be kept closed source, because then you can kind of market it as whatever. It's like, we're going to announce this crazy AI agent that's da 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 da. Like, these other things are open source. They can say whatever. They can make up terms. They can say, I don't know what. I don't want to dunk on anyone, but like, like these kind of handheld things. There's like they made up these terms. So like, it's like a blah blah blah, and it turns out it's like an Android device that does nothing basically. It's like you can kind of like when you close source, you can kind of like stretch reality way beyond the freaking universe, the known universe. And but it's all that's not real. You want to do the hard work, build something that's real, actually provides real value, and if you can do that, then you can open source core parts of it, and
It sounds like kind of just like to tie up the whole like this community thing. It's like you when people are using your product, you like elevate, and you like you almost like you just like acknowledge them, and you like make them feel good. You like incentivize people to further use and to further invest their own business around your business. Like, is that just like a generally good way to kind of just high level summary?
Totally. Yeah, totally. I mean, it's they get equal value back out of it, right, by being a part of the community, and if not greater, ideally greater, right? And that's that's key to building communities, is that people feel valued, and they feel like their contributions are valued, and are, the spotlight is put on them, and recognition is given, and it helps them out, right? And so I think it's really, and it shares knowledge, right? Where we, again, like, we are learning how to better build our product to match what people are discovering, what works really well with these things.
This has been awesome. It's been fun hearing the overnight success story that took a decade, or maybe 15 years, or maybe 13, I guess 20 years at this point, started at 13. Where can people find you? Like, just follow along. Like, we'll throw some links in the show notes if you want to do that, but any shout outs just to close things out?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, Bolt.new. Check it out if you haven't tried it yet. Hopefully your mind will be blown. If it's not blown, you should definitely tweet me. I'm at Eric Simons 40. Our Twitter account for Bolt is bolt.new. Not a period, but BOLTDOTNEW. Yeah. Yeah, they don't allow it in there, but it's kind of cute because like Bolt.new, yeah, that's that. I think that's the main ways,
Cool. And we'll throw a link to the careers page too. People want to check things out. Some of like the links that we mentioned, we'll throw links in the show notes.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. This has been a blast.
And thank you for listening. If you missed it, make sure to check out last week's episode with Rick Zulo at Equal Ventures, and tune in next week for guest Cam Duty on building Brickyard, the venture capital firm convincing founders to move to Chattanooga, Tennessee to lock in with no distractions until they find product market fit. If you like this episode, please leave a quick review or comment wherever you're listening or watching. Check the show notes for more on the topics mentioned throughout the conversation. If you don't want to miss a future episode, subscribe to my newsletter, The Split, to get each episode plus a transcript emailed directly to your inbox every week. Thanks again for listening. See you in the next episode.